There is a moment somewhere in the deep interior of the Brazilian rainforest when the canopy opens just enough to let a single shaft of light fall onto the ground. And in that light, if you look closely, the earth itself stops looking natural. The soil shifts color. The trees stand in lines too straight to be accident. And beneath your boots, hidden under centuries of leaf litter and root and rain, there is a wall, not a fallen tree, not a trick of shadow, a wall built by human hands in a place where, for almost 500 years, the world was told no one had ever built anything at all. This is the story of that wall and the city it belonged to, and the question that has haunted explorers, scientists, and dreamers since the first Europeans stumbled into the Amazon basin in the 16th century and came stumbling back out again with stories almost too strange to believe. They spoke of riverbanks lined with towns for days at a stretch, of roads wide enough for carts, of people so numerous that the smoke from their cooking fires hung over the jungle like fog. And then, just as suddenly as those stories appeared, they vanished. For 400 years, the Amazon was remembered not as a home to civilization, but as its enemy, a green ocean, a place where cities went to die, where ambitious men disappeared without a trace, where the jungle swallowed anything that dared to rise above the canopy. Archaeologists called it counterfeit paradise, a landscape so poor in nutrients, so brutal in its heat and disease, that it could never have sustained the kind of complex society that built pyramids in Egypt or palaces in Mesopotamia. The Amazon, they said, was simply too hostile for history to happen there. They were wrong, and the proof has been sitting under the trees the entire time, waiting for someone with the right eyes or the right technology to see it. If you've ever wondered how an entire civilization could vanish so completely that even the people living closest to it forgot it existed, stick around, because the answer is stranger and more unsettling than you might expect. And if mysteries like this fascinate you, this is exactly the kind of story this channel exists to tell. So consider subscribing before we go any further, because we are about to walk into the jungle, and what's waiting for us down there does not give up its secrets easily. The story properly begins not with a discovery, but with a disappearance. In April of 1925, a British explorer named Percy Harrison Fawcett stepped off a steamship in Brazil with his eldest son, Jack, and Jack's close friend, Raleigh Rimmel, and the three of them turned their faces toward the Mato Grosso, a vast, half-mapped wilderness where Fawcett believed an ancient, lost civilization was waiting to be found. Fawcett was not a fantasist chasing rumors for the sake of adventure. He was a decorated surveyor who had spent nearly 2 decades mapping remote stretches of South America for the Royal Geographical Society. And over those years, he had gathered fragments of evidence that convinced him something extraordinary lay hidden in the forest. Indigenous oral histories spoke of great settlements upriver. Early colonial reports described towns so large that canoes paddling past them took hours to clear the riverside houses. And then there was a document that would become central to Fawcett's obsession, an 18th century Portuguese manuscript, now known simply as Manuscript 512, which described the ruins of a stone city deep in the Brazilian interior, complete with arches, statues, and inscriptions in an unknown script. Fawcett named the hidden civilization he sought Zid. He believed it lay somewhere in the unexplored reaches of the upper Xingu River, and on the 29th of May, 1925, he sent a final letter to his wife Nina from a place he called Dead Horse Camp. In it, he told her not to worry, that he expected the expedition to push through the unknown territory within days. Then the letter stopped. No trace of Fawcett, his son, or Rimmel was ever found. Over the following decades, more than 100 people are believed to have died searching for them or searching for the city Fawcett believed they had found. rescue parties vanished. Rumors swirled that Fawcett had been killed by hostile tribes, or had gone native and refused to return, or had stumbled into the lost city itself and simply chosen to stay. For most of the 20th century, the lost city of Z became one of the great unsolved mysteries of exploration, a cautionary tale about the dangers of chasing legends into a landscape that did not forgive mistakes. But here is where the story takes its first sharp turn. The kind of turn that should make the hair on your arm stand up. Fawcett was looking in roughly the right place. Decades after his disappearance, an American archaeologist named Michael Heckenberger began living among the Kwikuro people, an indigenous community in the same Singu region where Fawcett vanished. Heckenberger wasn't hunting for golden temples or lost manuscripts. He was doing the slow, patient work of an anthropologist, walking the land with people who had lived on it for generations. And what he started to notice troubled the comfortable assumptions of an entire academic field. The forest floor wasn't random. There were ditches that ran in perfectly straight lines for hundreds of meters. There were depressions in the earth that, once mapped, formed almost geometrically precise patterns. There were roads, not trails worn by animals or wandering hunters, but wide, deliberately engineered roads, some of them over 150 feet across, cutting through the jungle with the confidence that only careful planning could produce. Heckenberger and his team eventually mapped a network of these settlements stretching across the Upper Shingu, a complex now known as Kuhikugu. The numbers, when they finally added them up, were staggering. Towns connected by wide roads, defensive ditches and palisade walls, massive circular plazas, evidence of sophisticated water management and agriculture capable of supporting communities that some researchers believe numbered in the tens of thousands across the wider region. These were not scattered huts in a clearing. This was urban planning. This was infrastructure. Archaeologists began calling the network of settlements the garden cities of the Singu, because that's effectively what they were. A landscape engineered and cultivated by human hands on a scale nobody had thought possible in a rainforest environment. And here's the detail that should stop you in your tracks. The radiocarbon dating on Kuhikugu places its main period of habitation between roughly 500 and 1600 years after Christ's birth, with a sharp and sudden decline beginning sometime after European contact. The implication is almost too haunting to sit with comfortably. The civilization Fawcett spent his life searching for, and ultimately died searching for, may have already been crumbling into the past. By the time the first Portuguese ships reached Brazil's shores, he wasn't chasing a myth. He was chasing the ghost of something real, something that had already been extinguished by forces no conquistador's sword ever touched, and he walked directly into its remains without ever fully realizing what he had found. So what happened to it? What could erase a network of cities, roads, and tens of thousands of people so completely that, within a few short generations, the descendants of those who built it no longer remembered the scale of what their ancestors had achieved? The answer, as unsettling as it is, has less to do with mystery and more to do with biology. When European explorers first made contact with indigenous communities across the Americas, they carried with them diseases the native populations had never encountered: smallpox, measles, influenza, and others, against which their immune systems had no defense whatsoever. The epidemics that followed often outran the explorers themselves, racing along trade routes and river networks ahead of any European ever physically arriving. Entire societies could collapse from disease before a single colonist set foot in their territory. Researchers studying the Singu believe something similar happened here. A population in the tens of thousands, organized into an interconnected network of garden cities, could have been reduced by 90% or more within a generation or two. And when a society loses that much of its population that quickly, it doesn't just shrink, it forgets. The engineers die before they can train apprentices. The oral historians die before they can pass down the stories. The roads stop being maintained, and the jungle, patient as it always has been, begins reclaiming everything within years. This is one of the most chilling aspects of the entire Amazonian mystery. The rainforest is not simply hiding these cities from us. In a very real sense, it consumed the evidence almost immediately after the people who built it were gone, and it has been quietly digesting the remains for the last 400 to 500 years. If you're starting to feel the scale of what we're talking about here, I want you to sit with that for a second, because we've barely scratched the surface, and the next discovery takes this story somewhere even more astonishing. For most of the 20th century, the few archaeologists who took the idea of an urbanized Amazon seriously were treated, frankly, as eccentrics. The dominant academic view, sometimes called the counterfeit paradise theory, held that Amazonian soils were simply too poor in nutrients to support large, settled populations. Slash and burn agriculture, the thinking went, could feed small mobile bands, but nothing close to a city. This view was so entrenched that when explorers like Fawcett or earlier Spanish chroniclers like Francisco de Orellana described vast riverside settlements, their accounts were dismissed as exaggeration, the kind of tall tale common to colonial-era exploration literature. Orellana, who in 1542 led the first European expedition down the length of the Amazon River, wrote of densely populated riverbanks, organized towns, and even fortified settlements that attacked his expedition with surprising military coordination. For centuries, historians treated his journal as fiction. How could a society capable of large-scale warfare and urban organization simply disappear without leaving a trace? The trace, it turns out, was never really gone. It was just invisible from the ground, buried under root systems and centuries of decomposing vegetation, so thick that an archaeologist could stand directly on top of a 1,000-year-old pyramid and see nothing but an oddly shaped hill covered in trees. Everything changed with a piece of technology originally developed for entirely different purposes. A remote sensing system called LiDAR, which fires rapid pulses of laser light from an aircraft toward the ground and measures with extraordinary precision how long each pulse takes to bounce back. Fired densely enough and processed correctly, LiDAR can do something that sounds almost like science fiction. It can digitally strip away the entire forest canopy, leaf by leaf, branch by branch, and reveal the bare earth beneath as if the trees had never existed at all. In the early 2020s, a research team led by archaeologist Heiko Prumers of the German Archaeological Institute pointed a helicopter-mounted LiDAR system at a region of the Bolivian Amazon called the Llanos de Mojos, a seasonally flooded tropical savanna in the southwest of the Amazon basin. Archaeologists had known for 2 decades that something was out there. Ground surveys, going back to work by ethnographer Erland Nordenskjöld and later researchers William Denevan and Clark Erickson, had identified scattered earthworks and raised agricultural fields across the region. But the area was so vast, so waterlogged during the rainy season, and so difficult to traverse on foot that nobody had been able to piece together the full picture. What the LiDAR revealed, once the data was processed, left the research team stunned. Beneath the canopy lay the unmistakable remains of a sophisticated, densely organized civilization built by a culture now known as the Kasarabe, who flourished in this exact region between roughly 500 and 1400 years after Christ's birth. The scans revealed 2 enormous urban centers, one spanning nearly 150 hectares and another more than 300, surrounded by a 4-tiered hierarchy of smaller settlements, all connected by an intricate web of raised causeways and canals stretching for nearly 600 miles. At the heart of the largest sites stood stepped platforms topped with U-shaped ceremonial structures, rectangular mounds, and conical pyramids rising as high as 70 feet. Monumental architecture that had simply never been documented in this part of the Amazon before. One researcher on the project described the discovery almost involuntarily as mind-blowing. It's not hard to understand why. This wasn't a village. It wasn't even a cluster of villages. It was a planned, engineered, low-density urban civilization, the kind of settlement pattern previously documented in places like ancient Cambodia or Sri Lanka, but never before confirmed to have existed anywhere in the supposedly empty wilderness of the Amazon basin. And this is the part of the story I find almost impossible to fully process. Researchers now estimate that, at its peak, the pre-Columbian Amazon may have supported a population of up to 8 million people. 8 million, spread across engineered landscapes, interconnected by causeways and canals, sustained by agricultural systems sophisticated enough to feed dense, settled communities, in an environment academics had spent the better part of a century insisting could never support them. The myth of the untouched, pristine, virgin rainforest, the idea that the Amazon was nature exactly as it had always been, completely unmanaged by human hands, has effectively collapsed under the weight of this evidence. What modern eyes saw as untouched wilderness may, in significant part, have been an abandoned garden, still bearing the fingerprints of the people who shaped it, slowly being reclaimed by exactly the kind of growth those people had spent centuries holding back. Here's a question worth sitting with for a moment, and I'd genuinely love to hear your theory in the comments. If a civilization of millions of people with monumental architecture and engineered infrastructure stretching across thousands of square miles could vanish so completely that for 400 years, modern science insisted it never existed at all, what else might still be sitting under that canopy, waiting for the right laser pulse, or the right archaeologist, or the right accident to bring it back into the light? Because the discoveries at Llanos de Mojos and Cujicugu are not isolated incidents. They are increasingly beginning to look like the visible edges of something much larger. Archaeologists working across the Amazon basin, from the Upano Valley in Ecuador to the Tapajós region of Brazil, have identified evidence of geometric earthworks, fortified villages, raised field systems, and what some researchers now call geoglyphs, enormous geometric shapes carved into the earth itself, some of them only visible from the air, that may have served ceremonial, social, or astronomical purposes. Scientists are still working to understand. The deeper researchers dig, quite literally, the more it becomes clear that the version of the Amazon most of us grew up imagining, a primeval wilderness untouched by human hands since the dawn of time, was never accurate at all. It was a forest, shaped, cultivated, and built upon by complex societies for well over 1,000 years, societies that engineered entire ecosystems and then, in the span of a few terrible generations following European contact, were reduced to a fraction of their former numbers, scattered and largely forgotten. What makes this particular mystery so difficult to fully resolve, and what continues to draw researchers back into the field year after year, is the sheer logistical impossibility of studying the Amazon the way archaeologists study deserts or open plains. The forest itself is the obstacle. Even with LIDAR revealing the outlines of lost cities from above, ground teams still have to physically reach these sites, often hacking through dense vegetation, crossing flooded savanna during the wet season, and contending with the same brutal heat, insects, and isolation that claimed Fawcett and so many others nearly a century ago. Many of the sites identified by remote sensing have still never been excavated in detail. Entire urban centers, confirmed to exist by laser data, remain essentially unexplored on the ground, their plazas, structures, and burial sites untouched since the moment their original inhabitants disappeared. Every expedition that does make it into these areas tends to raise more questions than it answers. What were these monumental platforms actually used for? Why are some settlements oriented towards specific points on the horizon, in patterns that hint at deliberate astronomical alignment? How did a culture without large draft animals or the wheel manage to engineer hundreds of miles of causeways and canals across some of the most challenging terrain on Earth? And perhaps most hauntingly of all, how many more of these cities are still out there, sitting beneath the canopy at this very moment, completely unknown to science, waiting for a future LiDAR survey or a chance discovery by researchers walking the wrong path at exactly the right time? If this kind of mystery genuinely fascinates you, the kind of question where every answer only opens up 2 or 3 more, do me a favor and hit that like button, because it tells me you want more deep dives like this one. And honestly, the Amazon alone could fill 100 more episodes. There's a particular kind of unease that settles in once you really absorb the scale of what's been lost here. We are not talking about a single forgotten temple or an isolated tribe whose history slipped through the cracks. We are talking about millions of people, an entire civilizational tradition stretching across a landmass roughly the size of the continental United States, engineering one of the most hostile environments on the planet into something that worked for them for over 1,000 years, and then watching nearly all of it erased within a few catastrophic generations. The roads they built are still down there, the canals, the causeways, the platform mounds, the pyramids rising silently under the canopy are still down there. In some very real sense, the lost city beneath the Amazon was never lost to the land at all. It was only lost to us, to the explorers who searched for it with machetes and compasses, to the academics who insisted for a century that it couldn't possibly exist, and to the rest of the world, which simply stopped looking once the people who remembered it were gone. Percy Fawcett never found his city of Z, not in the way he imagined it, gleaming and golden and waiting to be claimed, but somewhere in the tangled, humid darkness of the Xingu, he very likely walked across its bones without ever knowing it, just as countless explorers, scientists, and indigenous communities have walked across the bones of the Casarabe cities in Bolivia, the geoglyph builders of Acre, and civilizations whose names we may never even recover. The forest closed over what they built with the same patience it has always shown, indifferent to the scale of what it was burying. And for 4 centuries, it kept that secret almost perfectly. It's only now, with lasers fired from helicopters and patient archaeologists willing to question everything they were taught, that the canopy has finally begun to lift, piece by piece, revealing a history far stranger, far grander, and far more haunting than anyone, including the men who died searching for it, ever truly imagined. And the unsettling truth researchers keep returning to is this: for every lost city the Amazon has surrendered so far, the data suggests there are scores more still hidden beneath that endless green ocean of canopy, patiently waiting in the dark for their turn to be found. We may have only just begun to read the first page of a story that has been buried under that forest for half a millennium. What do you think is still waiting down there? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to go even deeper into the lost civilizations the jungle has swallowed whole, subscribe, because this is far from the last secret the Amazon is going to give up.